24시간 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News. For the second year in a row, President Yoon is attending the United Nations General Assembly, which starts next Monday. Busan's Expo bid and Kim-Putin cooperation likely top his agenda. Russian President Vladimir Putin says after a rare summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un that military cooperation is possible. In response, Seoul warns that Pyongyang and Moscow will pay a price should they take any action that violates UNSC resolutions and threatens South Korea's security. In Libya, after devastating floods from Storm Daniel have left thousands dead and many still missing in the city of Derna, international help is pouring in for a search and rescue operation. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. South Korean President Yoon will be heading to New York for the United Nations General Assembly starting next Monday. He'll have an array of bilateral meetings with his global counterparts and embark on a diplomatic campaign to promote Busan's bid to host the World Expo in 2030, with the voting coming up in November. This major diplomatic event comes at a time when North Korea's Kim Jong-un and Russia's Vladimir Putin strengthen their ties. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
President Yoon is looking to strengthen South Korea's status as a globally contributing country while making his biggest push yet for Busan's bid to host the World Expo in 2030. On Wednesday, the presidential office announced that President Yoon will be in New York from Monday to Friday.
During this general meeting, the President will launch an all-out diplomatic campaign to get support for Busan's bid to host the World Expo in 2030. At the moment, around 30 meetings with other leaders are scheduled, with more in the works. This is something that no other South Korean president has attempted during overseas trips.
As soon as he lands in New York, President Yoon will start his series of bilateral meetings with the leaders of Turkmenistan and the Czech Republic, among others. On the second day, he will meet with his Ghanaian counterpart as well as UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. A number of bilateral sideline meetings will happen in between, including with 10 countries that South Korea never has met before one-on-one, such as San Marino and St. Lucia. The third day will be when Yoon speaks to the UN General Assembly.
President Yoon will promise to the world continued enhancement of official development assistance to close the global development gaps, support to reduce carbon emissions and the transition to clean energy in climate-vulnerable countries, and for South Korea to be responsible for the world enjoying the benefits of digital technology.
Kim also explained that Yoon will have the opportunity to share South Korea's vision as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for 2 years starting in 2024. On Thursday, he will be returning to New York University's Digital Vision Forum, as last year he was there to emphasize the importance of digital technologies in contributing to the expansion of freedom. He is expected to re-emphasize South Korea's taking the lead in creating regulations for fair and equitable access to digital assets. On his last day, he will wrap up his stay in New York with meetings with the leaders of the Pacific Islands. While the top office's focus may be on winning votes at BIE for Busan's bid to host World Expo 2030, it does come with the backdrop of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visiting Russia's Vladimir Putin, with the two strengthening military cooperation. An official says the public can expect an appropriate analysis and message for the two in Yoon's speech to the UN General Assembly. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
After wrapping up a summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is reportedly on his way to a Russian jet production plant in Khabarovsk. Also following the summit, Kim extended Putin an invitation to North Korea, which the Kremlin just moments ago said was accepted by its leader. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's next destination in Russia seems to be a jet production plant in Khabarovsk region. Local sources said that Kim has already left for the city, which is around 1,000 kilometers away from where the summit was held. Citing a Russian government source, Japan's Kyodo News reports that Kim will arrive Thursday evening and attend a dinner with Russia's defense minister and the governor of Khabarovsk. Putin had earlier announced that Kim would visit Russia's jet production plant located in the region. The tour of the production plant that manufactures Russia's advanced multi-purpose fighters is expected to take place Friday morning. Kim is then expected to go further south to Vladivostok, where he's anticipated to tour the Pacific Fleet and Far Eastern Federal University before departing to North Korea late at night. Following Wednesday's summit, Kim Jong-un invited Vladimir Putin to visit North Korea. The regime's state-run media reported Thursday that the Russian leader accepted the invitation with pleasure and reaffirmed his will to carry forward the history and tradition of their friendship. With regards to military cooperation between the two countries, Putin reportedly said that military technology cooperation with North Korea would still be possible within international regulatory frameworks. This implies that Russia, who's a permanent UNSC member, is seeking ways to cooperate with North Korea while not violating UNSC sanctions. Also ongoing from the summit, Russia's foreign minister is set to visit Pyongyang in October to hold further discussions with his North Korean counterpart. The two are seeking to revive their economic cooperation, which was halted due to the pandemic. Meanwhile, the South Korean government says any actions by North Korea and Russia that violate UNSC resolutions and threaten South Korea's security will come at a clear cost. The National Security Council committee members on Thursday called on Moscow and Pyongyang to not get involved in an arms trade. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
As the nation looks to close the gap between the Seoul metropolitan area and regions outside it, President Yoon today launched a new committee aiming for policies to decentralize authority and promote balanced growth nationwide. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea will establish new locally driven special zones throughout the country, offering more attractions for firms and younger workers to narrow the gap between the capital area and the country's regional economies. On Thursday, at the southern port city of Busan, President Yoon Suk-yeol announced the launch of the Presidential Committee for Decentralization and Balanced Development. The gap between regional economies and the country's metropolitan area, comprising Seoul, Incheon and Gyeonggi-do province, has been widening significantly over the past 10 years, to 5.6 percentage points in 2021. To build a basis for bustling ecosystems across the nation, local governments will be able to establish 4 types of special development zones with greater autonomy to initiate distinctive policies, compared to previous special economic zones that were driven by the central government.
저는 지역 균형 발전의 핵심으로 공정한 접근성, 지역의 재정 자주권 강화, 지역 스스로 발굴한 비교 우위 산업에 대한 중앙정부의 지원을 강조해 왔습니다. 그리고 저는 교육이 지역 발전의 핵심이라고 역설해 왔습니다.
First, so-called opportunity development zones will offer various tax incentives on corporate activities, including the deferral of acquisition and property taxes for firms that relocate to the area, and 5-year waivers on income and corporate taxes for new businesses. To encourage local innovation, particularly in 6 advanced tech areas like semiconductors, bio and robotics. Low-interest loan schemes and tax benefits for investors will be prepared, as well as fast-track regulatory checks, exemptions and approvals. In order to encourage relocation, private housing supplies and transfer tax benefits for property will be provided for employees of the incoming firms, along with childcare and new schools. To foster future innovation, special education zones will enable more diversity in the classroom, boosting public and online education. Universities will have more autonomy to collaborate with local governments and industries to create specialized programs and recruit more international students. Also, city centre convergence zones aim to attract young people to 5 metropolitan cities throughout the country, with clusters of cultural, residential and commercial spaces. Nearly 9 in 10 of Korea's largest companies are located in the capital region, where over 50% of the population live and work. Meanwhile, special cultural zones aim to foster the growth of designated cultural cities. The government aims to push through relevant legislature in time to launch the new special zones from 2024. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea will provide its biggest ever financial aid package worth some $6 billion to projects in Africa. This was agreed during a conference held in the city of Busan, where Korean and African officials gathered for economic cooperation. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
Economic ties between South Korea and Africa can develop into a powerful alliance. That's according to Seoul's finance minister on Wednesday in his opening speech at the 7th Korea-Africa Economic Cooperation or KOAFEC Ministerial Conference, with a biennial event held for the first time in 5 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
The importance of South Korea and Africa in the international society has significantly increased. I'm confident that if South Korea's advanced industries and Africa's growth potential are combined, we can become the most powerful alliance in leading the recovery of the global society.
Under the theme of just energy transition and agricultural transformation in Africa, representatives from 38 African countries gathered in the southeastern port city of Busan to discuss ways to bolster economic cooperation. As a part of the joint declaration by South Korea and Africa, action plans for the next 2 years were announced. The plans include Seoul's $6 billion financial aid package to support various projects in Africa with a special focus on energy transition, agricultural, and education projects. Both sides agreed that insufficient electricity supply has delayed Africa's economic growth and industrialization. In response, they decided to work together to develop infrastructures such as power generation facilities, as well as dealing with renewable energy and energy efficiency.
Africa has huge amount of renewable energy, and this will allow us to be able to support that. And in that sense, Korea is already supporting Africa through the Korea Trust Fund to actually prepare a study that will allow Africa to be able to consider the manufacturing of solar panels in Africa. That will help also the energy transition in Africa. So it's a big component.
For agricultural innovation, initiatives will involve smart farming, the adoption of modern agricultural technologies, and the development of rice supply chains. On the sideline of the conference, South Korea and the African Development Bank held a signing ceremony for Seoul's commitment to increase its support for the KOAFEC Trust Fund. Under the agreement, it will provide an additional $24 million to the AFDB as part of the $6 billion financial package. Both sides agreed to further develop the economic cooperation discussed in the KOAFEC Ministerial Conference as groundwork for meaningful outcomes at the South Korea-Africa Summit in Seoul in May of next year. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News, Busan.
In Libya, after devastating floods from Storm Daniel have left thousands dead and many still missing in the city of Derna, international help is pouring in for a search and rescue operation. Our Yoon has more.
Storm Daniel that struck northeastern Libya on Sunday night has left at least 6,000 people dead and thousands more missing. Flash flooding caused extensive damage all the way to the coast after a torrential downpour caused 2 dams to collapse. The water that those dams had been holding back, combined with the extreme rainfall, washed away entire neighborhoods, collapsing buildings and trapping residents under mountains of rubble.
This entire city has been annihilated. There are victims still under the rubble, and some are in the sea. There are bodies buried in mass graves because the cemeteries are full.
Derna Mayor Abdulmenam Al-Gaithi told Saudi-owned Al Arabiya television the estimated number of deaths in the city could reach between 18,000 to 20,000, based on the number of districts destroyed by the flooding. Scientists say that climate change may have increased the severity of the storm that caused the extreme weather event.
The state alone cannot handle this. We need to be clear about that. Our resources are limited. Many have come forward to help with what they can, but we are looking for help from organizations like the United Nations.
In response, the UN Disaster Assessment and Coordination System has dispatched an emergency response team to help with response and relief efforts. The UN has also allocated $10 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund to support those affected. The World Food Programme is sending food aid to over 5,000 affected families.
Storm Daniel is yet another lethal reminder of the catastrophic impact that the changing climate can have on our world. I call on all Libyan political actors to overcome deadlocks and divisions and to act collectively in ensuring access to relief.
The European Union says it will provide €500,000 in immediate humanitarian funding, while countries such as the United States, United Kingdom, Egypt, and Turkey have also vowed to provide support. Yoon, Arirang News.
Now to the latest in Morocco. The death toll there continues to rise following one of the deadliest earthquakes to hit that country. Citing the Interior Ministry, local sources report that as of 7 p.m. Wednesday, the number of casualties has risen to 2,946. More than 5,600 are injured. Almost all of those who have perished were reportedly found under rubble. Public authorities are mobilizing all necessary resources to recover bodies, treat the injured, and provide emergency support, especially as the chances of finding additional survivors are slim after the first 72 hours pass. It's been more than 2 weeks since South Korea's main opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung began a hunger strike to protest the Yoon administration. And now voices of concern are arising not only from party members, but also from outsiders. Ruling People Power Party leader Kim Ki-hyun said on Thursday that Lee's health was getting worse and that he respectfully asks him to end the strike. Lee was visited by former presidential chief of staff No Young-min on Wednesday, who said former President Moon Jae-in was very worried about the prolonged strike, asking him to end it. Democratic Party of Korea spokesperson Lee So-young says while Lee was aware of these concerns, including advice from medical staff, he was still determined to continue with the hunger strike. The Korean Railway Workers Union began a 4-day strike on Thursday, calling for better working conditions and the expansion of state-operated trains, such as the high-speed KTX, opposing what they call the ongoing steps towards privatization of the railways. Around 13,000 strikers say this is to increase public convenience and lessen the deficit of the Korean Railroad Corporation. With only about 60% of workers at work, over 900 trains have been canceled nationwide. In response, the Transport Ministry said it was not pushing for privatization and therefore the motivation for the strike was unjustified. The ministry is undertaking emergency transport measures while the union says there could be a second strike if the parties don't come to an agreement. The number of babies born in South Korea is continuously sinking to new lows, a major concern for the country. But one county around 2 hours from Seoul has actually seen fertility rates there go up. Our Lee Soo-jin went to see how this was possible.
Baby whales and classroom chatter might soon be a thing of the past. This elementary school is just one of many in South Korea that have been abandoned and shut down due to the lack of students. And this comes as South Korea's fertility rate continues to shatter records. The nation's total fertility rate, the average number of children expected per woman, tumbled to a record low of 0.78 last year. As of 2021, South Korea is the only OECD member country where the total fertility rate is less than 1. And this year's fertility rate for the second quarter fell further to 0.7. We asked young South Koreans why they're hesitant to have children.
If I get married, both me and my husband will probably have to work because of the high education costs. But if there's no childcare center that I can trust, it might be better to just not have children.
The reality is that raising a kid is costly because of the high education costs.
But there are still areas in South Korea where fertility rates have actually gone up. This county in Gangwon-do province has a fertility rate that greatly exceeds the national average. Let's go find out how it has achieved this. We met with the mayor of Hwacheong-gun County, who told us that this was largely due to a decade-long effort to provide a comprehensive support system with a focus on alleviating the education cost burden.
We wanted to provide equal opportunities for people regardless of their economic background, from the time the baby is in their mother's womb until the child graduates college.
The county pays college tuitions of not only students attending domestic colleges, but also any of the world's top 100 universities, as long as they have parents who have lived in Hwacheon for at least 3 years. While the nation's fertility rate has been on a steady decline since 2015, Hwacheon's fertility rate actually rose from 1.2 in 2021 to 1.4 last year. During this period, a new public postpartum rest center opened. Postpartum rest centers are clinics unique to Korean culture that help mothers recuperate after giving birth. Women typically stay at these centers for 2 weeks where staff care for newborns while the mothers rest. They can cost up to around $12,000.
Anyone who's lived in Hwacheon for at least a year can use the center for 2 weeks at no cost. I've lived here for 3 years, so I'm staying here for free.
There are also programs aimed at helping them transition into motherhood smoothly.
The programs that teach us practical skills such as how to bathe a newborn and breastfeed properly have been super helpful.
The county also offers services where elementary school students can hail a bus through a smartphone app.
주로 오는데 얼마 정도 걸려요?
2분.
The bus stops at various locations and parents receive text messages that inform them of their child's location. The importance of coming up with a comprehensive solution like this was echoed by one expert.
The government has already implemented various policies, including financial incentives for having children, improving work-life balance, and expanding childcare services. Yet to be effective, policies must take a comprehensive approach.
She added that there also needs to be more measures aimed at providing affordable housing and stable jobs, as well as creating a cultural shift away from the traditional nuclear family structure. 이수진, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, K-pop boy band Stray Kids will be holding 2 concerts at the Gocheok Sky Dome in Seoul on October 21st and 22nd. According to JYP Entertainment, the band's agency, this is the first time in 5 years for Stray Kids to perform in the Dome, the largest indoor performance arena in South Korea since their debut. Stray Kids are on a mini tour that saw them hold sold-out shows in Fukuoka, Nagoya, and Osaka in Japan prior to the Seoul concerts, which have been titled Seoul Special Unveil 13. Recently, the band has been actively engaging in both domestic and international activities, showcasing their immense popularity, and they also have received the Best K-pop Award at the 2023 MTV Video Music Awards. The mini tour returns to Japan for its finale shows at the Tokyo Dome on October 28th and 29th.
Along with the cold showers, Seoul will see breezier conditions for tomorrow. Highs will be reaching 25 degrees Celsius, which is below the seasonal average. For the south of the country, warmer temperatures are in the forecast. As for the overall amount of rainfall, heavy downpours are expected for eastern Gangwon-do province with up to 120 millimeters. The coastlines of Jeollado province will see up to 100. Chungcheong-do province and the surrounding regions will see up to 80. Parts of central regions, including here in Seoul, can expect up to 60 millimeters. And depending on the movement of the rain clouds, locally heavy downpours are expected. Some regions may see 20 to 30 millimeters per hour, which can lead to potential flooding. Please take extra precautions. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gyeongju will be starting off at 22 degrees. Showers will continue on for the daytime. As for the daily highs, Seoul will get up to 25. Daejeon 26, Gyeongju and Busan will be making it to 28 degrees. Until next Monday, daytime temperatures will be on a rising trend, and frequent showers are expected for the next few days. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this Thursday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Good night.
Welcome.